Go ahead, Command. Target designated.
Nuclear launch detected. Clear under attack.
Prepare to die.
Imaging complete.
Non-vigilant.
Counter-terrorists win. Ouch, Fantasy, but we're on to the second set on Icarus, yet another map that does not favor Fantasy. Yeah, none of the maps this season, except for maybe Pathfinder, have not chewed up Terran players and spat them onto the sidewalk. Yeah, the maps this season just hate Terran players with a burning passion. Oh, that was a nice Clint Eastwood squint from Calm, actually, to go along with that. I hate Terran. Get off my lawn. But Fantasy, it's already not looking good for him. Lost the first set. The maps are not favorable. He's playing an extremely good Zerg player. So wow, I can hear the Fantasy fanboy hearts out there breaking. I know there are plenty of Fantasy fanboys still left. Not as many as there were last year, a couple seasons back, but they're still there. The passion still burns in the hearts of many fanboys as they type diatribes in the comments section about how Fantasy's the best player ever. But here we go. Icarus, as I said, is the map. Except over at the 3 o'clock position in red is Fantasy. That means down at the 8 o'clock in blue is Calm. Okay, forget what I said in the last set. That double down is not sitting too well. Hopefully I can make it through the sets today. I mean, if Calm takes a 3-0 or something, I guess I won't have to worry about that. Worry about going into a coma by the end of this thing. But if we see like 40-minute games from these dudes, I'm just going to go into a coma. That's going to be it. Casting from a coma would be interesting, though. It would be very quiet kind of commentary, but probably not a lot different than I was when I first started commentating. I often wonder about that. The people who have been following me since the beginning, because my commentary style has changed a lot, and I wonder how many people are just like, wow, Nuke's so annoying now. He's so energetic. Even though I am basically one of the most mellow commentaries, sitting back in my chair with a cup of coffee or something, in a bathrobe holding a pipe. This is the mellow commentary. But yeah, I used to be way more low-key because basically I was afraid. That's all there is to it. And now I'm not afraid at all about doing anything, singing la or anything stupid like that, zergling noises. Yeah, I don't care. I really don't care. So that's why I'm more energetic these days. But hopefully my original subscribers are still hanging around with me. I remember some of the screen names, but not all of them usually. That was a nice trace there. I could tell that's a freaking trace from someone cheating. That's even trace paper, too. And there's someone who looks like a mother from some foreign country. But okay, Fantasy is walling off inside of his natural expansion. And Fantasy actually dealt with Hyuk pretty effectively on this map, Icarus. He went for an adaptation of what Terran players usually do, which is to start off with 2 scans. And that is what made Flash fail against Hyuk on this same map. Is getting up his 2 scans, he scanned way too late, and he was dealing with 2 hatch Mutalisk, which is not a fun build to deal with, especially on this map where the Mutalisk just pound you. You have to build so many turrets. But Fantasy is kind of lucky in this regard because he got the cross positions on this map. He doesn't have to deal with Calm at the 12 o'clock position or something, being very close to his main, where he could just resupply the Mutalisk, keep resupplying them. So Fantasy is a bit lucky in that regard. He can wait off a little bit longer on his turret timing as long as he scouts and sees what he's up against. But in his game against Hyuk, he got his... Well, he went for another early factory. This is going to be scouted, though, by Calm. I didn't even notice that he put down the refinery so early this time. But yeah, as I said, he's going to go for wacky strats in every single one of these games. And this is glorious. glorious. I can't wait to see what Fantasy has come up with this time for this map. This is not what he used against Hyuk. He did not go for this early of a refinery, if I remember correctly, against Hyuk. He went for a much more standard type of play with a slight tweak in the build to give himself an advantage as far as turret count goes. But Fantasy is still hanging in there, building a starport. Oh man, what are we going to see from Fantasy? I don't think it's going to be 2-port Wraith or anything, because I don't see the second starport. Usually both the starports come up at the same time if it is 2-port Wraith. But this is a strange build from Fantasy. No telling what he's up to. This could be a number of things, including early science vessel, including Valkyries. It's hard to tell, but the layer up for Calm, he is going to prepare for wackiness. I love best of fives with Fantasy in them, honestly, because his builds cause the other player to react to it, obviously, and it's just bananas, man. Absolute chaos. So Calm is prepared at home with the Sunken Colony at the front just to fight off any potential vulture harassment, and he is throwing down the Spire. This is actually not that different than what many other Zerg players have done against Terran on this map. Even though he is reacting to a mech opening, he's still going for the 2-hatch Mutalisk, which Zerg players have used extensively on this map against Terran. But Fantasy's building a Wraith from one starport. I have no idea what he's up to, but he's going to start off a little bit of Wraith harassment. Oh, Fantasy. And no second starport yet for him. He's building his academy, which means he's going to group up a couple of Wraiths. Well, he might just do a fake out with the Wraiths, just build 1 or 2 Wraiths and make Calm think that he's going for a 2-port Wraith build or something. But, yeah, going out the first Wraith, going to hunt down that first Overlord, not being very shy about revealing that Wraith early, which makes me think that he's not going to go for a lot of Wraiths in this game. He's already building his control tower on the starport, and so already I have no idea what Fantasy's going to do, and that has me very excited, because Calm already has his Spire up, which means he's probably not going to have much trouble chasing off this lone Wraith, because is Fantasy actually going to upgrade Cloak for the single Wraith? I'm not exactly sure, but we'll find out soon enough. I wish the observers would check that out, actually. Fantasy able to snipe 1 Overlord. That's good enough damage, I think, so he can fall back to his Marines and get rid of those freaking Scourge. But turrets being built by Fantasy, he needs some kind of anti-air, so he has that prepared. Not only that, but Calm stuck at 2 hatcheries, and he pumped Scourge from one of his eggs, so Fantasy will have even fewer Mutalisks to deal with. He is going for Cloak. Fantasy going for 1-port Wraiths with Cloak, being scouted now by Calm, though. That is the important part. Calm got the scout on that, so he's going to upgrade his Overlord speed, and he's probably going to stick to all Mutalisks while he's pushing the front. Although Fantasy, he has kind of denied Calm any means of harassing him by building the turrets there. He has a few medic marines. He's actually lifting off his barracks, and he's going to build more barracks inside of his main, just closer to his turrets, so his medic marines will be okay once they come out of the barracks. But he is going for a medic marine and Wraith combo, which Lita kind of popularized. Yeah, Lita is the king of this type of build. Is Fantasy going to be as good as Lita? I doubt that at using Wraith control. Lita has the best Wraith control of any Terran. But Fantasy, I think he can make it work as long as he pays attention to all of his units at once. It takes a lot of multitasking to utilize this build. But if you can utilize it, it hurts the Zerg so much. The Zerg basically, they can't expand very much because they're dealing with Wraith harassment. They have to build spore colonies at the front to fight off the Wraiths and use very good Mutalisk Micro to snipe the rest of the Medic Marines. It is a nightmare to deal with, although I've seen some Zerg players deal with it. Most notably Jaedong in the finals against Fantasy. So Calm hopefully studied a bit of Jaedong's timings and whatnot. But Fantasy, this is a crucial time in the game for Fantasy because he floated off his barracks, he stopped production of his Medic Marines to build more barracks. So as you can see, Calm already has his Overlord speed up. He's ready to intercept these Cloaked Wraiths with the Overlords next to that. And he's going up to the top with his Overlords, coming in with his Mutalisks at the same time. Going to try to snipe some Wraiths. Now, Wraiths are notorious for being, as they're called in Korea, paper airplanes. They are so weak, so weak. I mean, together they can snipe units pretty easily if you micro them well enough. But they go down so quickly that, I mean, Calm, if he lands a couple of good shots, maybe a few good shots, he'll be able to basically eliminate the Wraith threat. So Fantasy, you're going to have to stay on top of his game, be vigilant as he protects his Wraiths and groups up his Medica Marines. He built plenty of turrets. So Calm, luckily for him, he went for that third base, but he got to build some spore colonies or something to protect the drone line as Fantasy is still working his way up with his Wraiths. The Wraiths are headed to the 10 o'clock position, going straight up. They're being scouted by the Overlord, though. But Fantasy finds the Overlord, snipes it, gets rid of that Overlord. He's going to go Overlord hunting, I think, see how many he can snipe. But Lurkers already for Calm. He's going to push the front with Mutalisk and Lurkers at the same time. This is a very good attack from him, and I think it's going to work out great if he can get rid of the detection at the front. You got to get rid of the turrets and force Fantasy to scan. But either way, this is going to be extremely powerful. I think Fantasy might have seen those Lurkers burrowing, though, so he may be able to snipe the Lurkers. Stopped Lurkers. These are stopped Lurkers from Calm. He's going to try to draw these Medic Marines into the stopped Lurkers. Brilliant attack from Calm, taking out all those Medic Marines. Now Calm is pushing the front. Oh, that was an excellent stop Lurker attack. That's how you got to do stop Lurkers, and that's why they're so freaking effective. But he's pushing the front now, going to try to take out the turrets, and that means of detection at the front. There is that tank back there, though, so I think that Calm has got to back off. Not sure if he's going to be a hold. I don't know if Fantasy can hold or not. He still has his tank. As long as he can keep the tank out of range of the Lurkers, I think he's going to be able to fight this back, actually, because he has his Wraiths in. He has a couple of Medic Marines left. Oh, this is such an aggressive attack from Calm. One more scan from Fantasy coming in from the top with some reinforcement Marines and fighting back. He actually holds it. Fantasy holds, but Calm continuing his aggression. I'm not sure if he's coming down with more Lurkers or not, but it's an extremely tight battle here at the natural expansion. Yeah, Calm is coming in with all of his Overlords, all of his troops. He is rally pointing everything to the natural expansion, sensing the blood in the water. But now Calm is coming in here. He has all of his Overlords into position so he can deal with Cloaked Wraiths. But now he's got to wait for more units to be grouped up before he tackles the natural expansion again. And I think he might be backing off. Yeah, I don't see him pressuring the front anymore. He's waiting until he has some more Lurkers to do that. But wow, that was such an epic battle at the natural expansion of Fantasy. That was on the knife edge, man. Fantasy was very close to losing that. Calm was very close to losing all of his troops. But both came out of it basically even, although I think that Fantasy sniping all the Mutalists like he did definitely gave him the advantage. But now Calm's going to try to come in here. Not sure if this is the smartest idea in the world, but he's going to get rid of a few turrets, give himself a little bit of breathing room to snipe SCVs, snipe units inside of this main, but it's going to be very difficult to get any kind of harassment on, so I think he should back off and save those Mutalists because he's going to need them. They're not going to last very long, though. I saw a science vessel out for Fantasy, which means Irradiate is on the way, so those Mutalists are going to be rendered basically useless, but Calm does have that third base going. I don't see any spore colonies, no spore colonies up there, so we're going to see some harassment from Fantasy, but only a couple of Wraiths, only 2 Wraiths. I think he's halted his Wraith production. I don't think he's going to do any more as far as Wraiths go. Might not even be able to snipe too many drones up here. He's going for the gas drones, which go back into the extractor pretty quickly, but he snipes 2 drones and decides to hightail it out of there before the Overlord arrives. And Calm was actually trying to take a 4th base, but noticing that Fantasy was coming for that drone, he decides to cancel that. But oh man, this is an epic game. So alright, Fantasy, he's still working off of his 2 bases, but that's basically all he needs for this type of tech that he's going. He's going into pretty standard now. After this Wraith opening, he's going into standard play with science vessels and tanks, which means he'll push the natural expansion pretty quickly, so Calm is going to want to have Defilers out once that happens. Now, I don't know if he's working on his Defiler mound or not, or if he even has Hive. He has his Queen's Nest, so I think he worked up his Hive. Hey, yeah, he's just now getting Hive. I don't think it's going to be quick enough. No, it's not, because Fantasy is pushing the front. It's going to have to be an excellent flank attack from Calm. I don't think Calm is prepared, though. He's morphing more Lurkers. He has a lot of Lurkers in the back, but he's got to get in there. There's a Radiate on the Mutalisk clump. The Mutalisk over there taking most of the shots, but Calm being grinded down. All of his Lurkers go down. There's still 2 tanks at the back to fire on these Lurkers. More Radiates from Fantasy. So Fantasy is sniping more drones as this attack is going on. Some beautiful multitasking from him. This has been a great game from both players, actually, because Calm has cleaned up this attack in the middle, but I think he just now found out about the harassment inside of his main. So I think he's going for Defilers, but Consume Research I don't think is going to get done. Even though he took down the troops in the middle, I don't think it's going to be in time. I don't think Defilers are going to help Calm here, as Fantasy is pushing out with his reinforcements, and you kind of see it on Calm's face. He knows he might be screwed if he can't hold Fantasy back much longer. And check out this drone harassment too, sniping the drones. Pretty much all the drones inside the main have been killed. There's the last one. Well, there are a few more left on gas. I'm sure that Fantasy will clean that up though. But Calm trying to hold things off until he can get some other kind of tech. Or though he went for his high, but I didn't see the Defiler mound anywhere. He might have hidden that up at the 10 o'clock position. Who knows? Trying to get the surround now. Pincer attack. Not burrowing his lurkers very quickly, though. He takes down about half of the troops from Fantasy here, almost landing a Scourge on that science vessel. But Fantasy is still hanging around. Fantasy's got to take his third base pretty quickly. I mean, he's working off of 2. A Terran can last on 2 bases for a long time, especially after doing that harassment of the main like he did. Yeah, in fact, I think he'll be able to last on 2 bases and beat Calm on 2 bases just because of that harassment he did inside the main. So Calm's got to hold this back. The longer he holds, the better off he's going to be, so he can re-drone that main. He's going for another pincer attack here, but Fantasy looks like he's keeping his head on his shoulders, fighting back these Zerglings that were trying to get the surround on him. So now Calm, Vultures and Mines now from Fantasy. Another strange tech switch from him. He loves to do this kind of stuff, but the Lurkers are probably going to have no trouble sniping the Mines if they drag into the Lurkers. So, yep, Zerglings coming out. Finally, the Defiler, and I think we're going to have Consume done pretty soon for Calm. So he might be able to do this, actually. If he can keep Fantasy in his 2 bases, stick him in those 2 bases and not let him get a third, I think the Calm will be able to do this, but this is just going to be a handful for him. Those 2 Wraiths still alive for Fantasy. Those are probably the same 2 Wraiths we saw earlier, and doing some more harassment. Fantasy gets a nice Marine Snipe here, but he isn't quite paying attention as there are Dark Swarm over everything, but the Firebats move in. That's why he was still committing. Has those Firebats to kill the Lurkers under the Dark Swarm, and now he's going to try to kill the Defiler with Firebats and Wraiths. Of course, a very standard attack, Firebats and Wraiths. I use that all the time on Battle.net. But, okay, Calm still hasn't re-droned inside of his main. He's trying to end this thing. Calm is trying to end it right now with what he has. And fight back Fantasy into his second base. And he has Dark Swarm, so he might be able to do this. Even with the Firebats, if he has his Lurkers in and they aren't getting irradiated, everything being irradiated and killed, Firebats cleaning up the last Lurker, and Fantasy is throwing his 2 very, very pesky Wraiths back inside of the main. 1 goes down, but there's still 1 very annoying neener Wraith inside of the main. Taking out more drones on hold position there, actually. A Fantasy, of course, he runs straight into a Scourge. Man, it made that Scourge's life very easy. Scourge, stay there. I'll run right into you. Okay. So Fantasy transitioning into his third base. He's going to try to take that, and Calm cannot let that happen. If Fantasy takes this third base and holds it, it's going to be over for Calm. In fact, it might be over for Calm right now, since he cut his drone saturation, completely cut his drone production from that main. Yeah, he's focused everything on troops. Look at this, no drones inside the main at all. He's trying to re-drone, but it's going to be very difficult with the troop count that Fantasy has on the ground now. Not to mention he has mines, he has science vessels all over the place. Not many science vessels have been sniped. In fact, I don't think any science vessels have been sniped in this game. So Fantasy being annoying, trying to intercept another base that's down there, and here comes Fantasy. I think this is going to be the game-ending push from him, as long as he can steer clear of the Dark Swarm. He has plenty of Firebats to fight under the Dark Swarm, of course. But, yeah, Fantasy is fighting a bit with those Firebats, but he's got to back off right now. So Calm is going for the third base. This is what he needs to do. He needs to cut Fantasy off of the neck, kill his economy by taking out that third base. But the Science Vessel and Firebats doing their job. You want to get invited to my next barbecue? As the Firebats cleaning up lurkers, which is not something you see very often. And Fantasy's mines, the annoying Vulture terrorism takes place yet again as all those Zerglings go down. And Fantasy has kept that one tank on top of his main ridge for a long time in this game. There's the GG from Calm, running out of units, running out of time and economy. So Fantasy takes it yet again on this map. Now, Fantasy has kind of mastered these maps that were not favorable for Terran this season, it seems. But now we have a series, 1-1. We are tied now. All right, let's move on to the third set.